Once upon a time, in a far-off land, there lived a young princess named Isabella. She was known throughout the kingdom for her beauty, her kind heart, and her quick wit. Everyone loved her, from the lowliest peasants to the mightiest knights. One day, Isabella decided to take a stroll through the enchanted forest that lay beyond the castle walls. As she wandered through the trees, she came across a tiny little creature with a bright red nose and a bushy white beard. "Hello there," said Isabella, smiling at the little creature. "What are you?" "I'm a gnome," said the creature, bowing deeply. "And you, my dear, are a beautiful princess." "Well, thank you," said Isabella. "But what are you doing out here in the forest all alone?" "I'm searching for the lost treasure of the enchanted wood," said the gnome. "Legend has it that it's hidden somewhere deep in these trees." Isabella was intrigued. "Would you like some help?" she asked. "Would I ever!" exclaimed the gnome. "But be warned, princess. The forest is full of dangers. There are trolls and goblins and all manner of creatures who would like nothing more than to gobble us up for dinner." Isabella just smiled. "Don't worry," she said. "I'm not afraid of anything." And so, the two of them set off deeper into the forest, in search of the lost treasure. They wandered for hours, following winding paths and crossing babbling streams. Along the way, they encountered all sorts of strange creatures, from giant spiders to talking trees. At last, they came to a clearing in the forest. In the center of the clearing stood a tall, moss-covered stone tower. "That's it!" cried the gnome. "That's where the treasure is hidden." Isabella looked up at the tower skeptically. "Are you sure?" she asked.
"Positive," said the gnome. "But we have to be careful. There are traps and puzzles and all sorts of tricks to keep intruders out." Undaunted, Isabella led the way up the winding stairs of the tower. At each turn, she solved a riddle or avoided a trap, until they finally reached the top. And there, in the middle of the room, was a small wooden box. The gnome rushed forward and opened the box eagerly. But instead of gold or jewels, all that was inside was a small slip of paper.
"What does it say?" asked Isabella, peering over his shoulder.
The gnome read aloud, "Congratulations! You have won a free dinner at the royal palace. Please present this voucher to the king for your reward."
Isabella laughed. "Well, that's a bit of a letdown," she said. "But I suppose it's better than nothing." And so, the two of them made their way back to the castle, where the king welcomed them with open arms and a lavish feast. As they sat at the table, laughing and telling stories, Isabella couldn't help but think how lucky she was to have met the little gnome and gone on such a wild adventure. From that day forward, whenever she looked out at the enchanted forest, she knew that there were always new adventures waiting just beyond the trees. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled deep in the woods, there was a legend about a haunted house. The house had been abandoned for decades, and people claimed to have seen strange figures lurking in the windows at night. It was said that anyone who entered the house would never return. Despite the warnings, a group of teenagers decided to explore the house one Halloween night. They entered the house cautiously, armed with flashlights and cameras. The house was filled with cobwebs, dust, and broken furniture. As they moved deeper into the house, they heard strange noises and whispers. Suddenly, one of the teenagers screamed, and the group rushed to see what had happened. They found her trembling, staring at a wall where there was a message written in blood. "Get out now." The group was shaken, but they continued exploring. As they moved upstairs, they heard a loud noise coming from the basement. They cautiously descended the stairs, and their flashlights revealed a dark room filled with chains, shackles, and torture devices. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, and they were trapped. They heard footsteps and whispers in the darkness, and they realized they were not alone. A cold breeze blew through the room, and the temperature dropped drastically. The group was terrified, and they started to panic. Then, they heard a voice. It was a woman's voice, soft and gentle, but filled with an eerie calm. The voice said, "You shouldn't have come here. This is my house, and I will never let you leave." The teenagers realized that they were in the presence of a ghost, and they were trapped in her domain. They tried to escape, but the doors and windows were sealed shut. They were completely alone in the darkness, with the ghostly presence looming over them. The ghost began to torment them, making objects move on their own, creating eerie illusions, and causing their flashlights to flicker on and off. The teenagers were terrified, and they knew they had to escape. They searched the room for anything that could help them, and they found an old book with a strange symbol on the cover. They opened the book, and a bright light filled the room. The ghost shrieked, and the chains and shackles fell away. The teenagers ran out of the room, through the house, and into the woods. They never looked back, but they could hear the ghostly laughter and whispers chasing them. They finally made it back to the village, and they told everyone about their terrifying experience. The haunted house was never entered again, and it remained a dark and ominous presence in the woods. But the teenagers knew that they had faced their fears and survived. They had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, knowing that they would never forget the horror they had faced.